The monster in the ice cage. The research base on planet Varnus 7 was always cold. The halls were made of steel. The lights flickered. And deep underground, in a frozen room with thick glass walls, something dangerous slept. They called her a monster. Alien. Scientists had captured her 3 years ago. She was tall, over 7 feet. Her skin was dark red like dried blood. Her eyes glowed when she opened them. Long claws, sharp teeth, strange black markings on her arms. No one knew where she came from. No one knew what she was, but they were sure about one thing. She was deadly. So they locked her in a glass cage surrounded by freezing gas and laser fences. Cameras watched her every second. No one entered the room unless ordered. No one spoke her name. In fact, she didn't have one. She was known only as Subject X-32. One day, a young human worker named Eli Grant arrived at the station. He was not a soldier, not a doctor, just a cleaner. He had been assigned the lower decks, dirty floors, broken lights, and forgotten machines. He didn't complain. He just worked, listened to music, and did his job. But during his second week, he saw something strange. There was a hallway the other workers warned him about. Never go to sub-level 4, they said. That's where it is. Eli was curious. So one night, after finishing his shift, he walked down the metal stairs. The lights flickered above. The air turned colder. He shivered. Then he saw the glass cage. Inside it was her. She was lying on the ground, chains around her arms and ankles. Mist filled the chamber. Her breath was slow. Her eyes were closed. Eli stood in silence. He had never seen anything like her. Over the next few nights, Eli returned. He didn't speak. He just stood there, watching her. And each time he stayed longer. She was still. Silent. Until one night, something changed. He was drinking hot tea from his flask when she opened her eyes. Golden, bright, staring straight at him. Eli froze. But she didn't move, didn't growl, didn't attack. She just looked at him. Her eyes didn't show anger. They showed pain. Eli's hand shook as he lifted the cup to his lips. "You're awake," he whispered without thinking. No answer. Of course not. She wasn't human. Maybe she didn't understand. But she kept watching. From that night on, it became a routine. Eli would finish his shift, bring a small meal or tea, and sit on a crate near the glass wall. He would talk about random things. His sister back on Earth, his love for old music, the smell of rain. The monster never replied, but she listened. And sometimes, her eyes would blink slowly, like she understood. One day, Eli found an old report on her. He read it in secret. The file said her species wiped out an alien colony. Highly dangerous, it said. Do not communicate. No name, no identity. Only code, X-32. But there were no pictures of her killing, no sound recordings, just fear, just rumors. Eli began to wonder, what if they were wrong? What if she wasn't a monster? That night he sat closer to the glass. She sat up for the first time. Eli's heart raced. His tea nearly spilled. She placed one clawed hand on the glass wall. Eli hesitated, then slowly lifted his hand and matched hers on the other side. Her skin looked cold. Her hand was bigger than his, but her touch was gentle. They sat like that for minutes. No alarms went off, no attacks, just silence and understanding. From that day, Eli called her Kylra in his mind. He didn't know if it was her real name, but it felt right. He began leaving small drawings, writing letters, even music recordings outside the chamber door. She always watched with curious eyes, and when she closed her eyes at night, she looked more like someone dreaming, not a monster locked in a cage. But danger was coming. Someone had noticed the camera feeds. Someone had seen Eli getting too close. And in the shadows of the base, someone decided this human had gone too far. Eyes that didn't kill Eli had seen death before. He had worked on warships, cleaned blood from metal walls, even seen burned bodies after alien raids. But those eyes, the ones staring at him from behind, thick glass, were not the eyes of a killer. They were sad, lonely. And that night, when he touched the glass, something changed. She didn't snarl, she didn't strike. She just closed her eyes, like she finally found peace. The next morning, alarms. Didn't scream. Reports didn't mention anything strange. But Kaelra, yes, Eli had now started calling her that even in whispers, was awake and watching. For the first time, she sat instead of lying. She moved slowly, carefully, like she didn't want to scare him. Eli came again that night with a warm drink and an old earth biscuit. He couldn't enter the cage, but he placed the small wrapped biscuit near the glass. "I don't know if you eat this," he said softly. "But I figured I'd share." She looked at it, then looked at him, no words. But her eyes, they blinked once, then twice. It almost felt like a thank you. Later that week, 2 alien scientists entered the sublevel while Eli was sweeping. One of them, a tall, gray-skinned female with glowing tattoos, stopped near Kaelra's cell. "She's too calm lately," she said. "She's observing the human," the second one muttered. Eli pretended not to hear, but the words stuck in his mind. Was she watching him because she saw something in him, or because she had nothing else left to believe in? That night, Eli didn't speak much. He just sat with his back to the wall near her cage. She slowly stood and walked to the glass. Eli looked up. She pressed one hand against the glass. He did the same. This time their hands didn't shake. Her claws didn't scare him. Her scars didn't bother him. He just looked into her eyes. "Why do they fear you?" he asked softly. She stared. Then she opened her mouth to speak, but only a low sound came, like a broken whisper. Eli leaned forward. She tried again. Still no clear words, but this time she touched her own chest and pointed at him. Then slowly, she drew a circle on the glass with her claw. A symbol. Eli pulled out a pencil and paper and copied it. He would figure it out later, but for now, something had changed again. The next day, Commander Talvek, the alien in charge of the research base, called Eli to his office. "I've seen you on the sub-level 4 feeds," Talvek said, eyes cold. Eli stayed quiet. "You are forbidden from interacting with Subject X-32. One mistake and she'll tear you in half." Eli finally spoke. "She hasn't hurt anyone, not me, not even herself. Maybe she's not what you think she is." Talvek slammed his hand on the table. "You think you know more than our scientists?" Eli stood, voice calm but firm. "No, sir? But maybe she's not a monster. Maybe she's just been treated like one for too long." Talvek narrowed his eyes. "You're dismissed. One more visit, and you'll be discharged." Eli didn't go back that night. He couldn't. Instead, he sat in the dark of his bunk, holding the paper with the strange circle she had drawn. He searched databases, symbols, languages. Then he found it. The circle matched an old peace emblem from a lost alien tribe, a tribe that was destroyed during a war, but never proven to be hostile. Eli's hands trembled. What if Kaelra wasn't a monster? What if she was the last of her kind? He couldn't stay away. The next night, he returned, quietly, after hours. Kaelra was waiting. She stood near the glass, hands at her side. Eli walked close. "I found your symbol," he whispered. She leaned forward, eyes full of hope. "It means peace, doesn't it?" Kaelra blinked once, then nodded, a single slow nod. Eli smiled. "I knew it," he whispered. But just then, sirens blared, red lights flashed. Voice on speaker. Unauthorized presence detected. Sub-level 4 breach in progress. Footsteps echoed above. Kaelra didn't move. She looked at Eli, and for the first time, she spoke clearly. "Run." The first touch. The first time Eli touched her. There was no glass, no barrier, no alarms, just silence, and the sound of their breath, warm and cold, mixing in the frozen air. It wasn't planned, it wasn't safe, and it could have ended in blood. But it didn't, because Kael'ra didn't strike. She reached out and held his hand. It had all started hours earlier, when the siren screamed and red lights filled the corridor. Eli stood frozen in front of her broken cage. The glass had cracked from the inside. Power was out. Lasers were down. Everything meant to hold her had failed. And yet Kael'ra wasn't running. She stood completely still. Her long, dark red hair hung wet from frost. Her chest moved slowly. Eyes bright gold fixed on him. Run, she had told him. But he didn't. He stepped forward instead. Are you going to hurt me? He asked softly. Kael'ra tilted her head. Then, in a raspy voice, she said, No. The security doors behind Eli opened with a heavy hiss. Boots pounded toward them. Shouts in alien tongue echoed down the hall. Eli turned back to her. We have to hide. She looked confused. No fight? She asked. He shook his head. They'll kill you if they see you out of the cage. Kael'ra's claws twitched. Not out of anger, but fear. She took a single step toward him, then another. Eli didn't run. He didn't even flinch. She towered over him. She could break him with one hand, but instead, she reached out with trembling fingers. Her claws brushed the side of his hand. Not a scratch, just a touch. Eli grabbed her hand. Warmth. Real warmth under all that frost. She gasped softly, not because of fear, but because no one had touched her kindly in years. He pulled her gently. This way. They rushed into a service tunnel just before the guards arrived. They crouched in darkness, close enough to hear angry voices and search drones humming above. She leaned against the wall, breathing heavy. Eli looked at her. Now that. He was this close, he saw something no camera had shown. Her skin wasn't like a demon. It shimmered faintly, like stars trapped beneath her surface. She wasn't a monster. She was beautiful. After minutes of silence, Kael'ra spoke again. You not scared? Eli shook his head. I was, but not anymore. She nodded slowly. Most scream, throw rocks, hurt me. I won't. She looked down at her hands. These kill. Eli gently turned her palm up. No, he said. These protected me. Kael'ra blinked. Then a tear, strange and silver, rolled down her cheek. I don't want kill, she whispered. Eli smiled. Then don't. You don't have to anymore. They stayed hidden until the base fell quiet again. Later in the dark maintenance room, Eli wrapped her in a thermal blanket. She didn't know what it was, but when the warmth spread, she let out a soft sigh. He handed her a small bread roll. She sniffed it, then took a bite, slow, unsure, then another, faster. Eli laughed. You like it? Kael'ra nodded. Yes. He handed her the water pouch. We'll figure this out. I'll help you. She looked into his eyes. Softly, she said, My name is Kael'ra. The moment hit him like a storm. She finally said, her name, her real name. Not Subject X-32, not Monster, not it, Kael'ra. Eli whispered it back. Kael'ra. She smiled faintly, lips trembling. Thank you, she whispered, for not running. Just then a voice came through the vent. Human detected in sub-level tunnels. Hunt drones activated. Eli's face turned pale. We have to move, he said. Kael'ra stood tall now, shoulders straight. She looked different, stronger. No, longer afraid. We run together, she said. He nodded. Then she placed her clawed hand on his chest. I protect you. Now. Eli smiled. Deal. And with that, the feared monster and the lowest-ranked human on the base disappeared into the dark side by side, not as enemies, but as something new. Her name wasn't Monsters don't say thank you. They don't cry. They don't whisper their names with shaking voices in the dark. But Kael'ra did. For the first time since Eli had arrived on this frozen planet, he realized something awful. They had lied to everyone. Not just about her name, not just about her past. They had erased who she was. Eli and Kael'ra moved through maintenance tunnels under the base, guided only by the blinking red light of Eli's wrist beacon. Kael'ra was barefoot. The cold metal floor didn't seem to hurt her, but Eli noticed her limping. He slowed down. "You're injured," he said. She didn't answer. She was staring at the wall. A piece of old, torn fabric hung there, part of a flag. Eli stopped. "Two, do you recognize that?" She nodded slowly, then whispered, "My people's mark." Eli stepped back in shock. That's the flag of the Vailari, but they were wiped out 10 years ago." Kael'ra's eyes darkened. "Yes, by them." She pointed upward, toward the base above. Eli's hands curled into fists. The Vailari were a peaceful race, scholars, healers, builders. The war had come fast, and no one questioned the official story that blamed the Vailari for attacking first. But what if that story was false? What if Kael'ra had been a diplomat? Or worse, a survivor? They found a hidden storage room with a broken heater and old supplies. Kael'ra sat on the floor. Eli gave her another thermal blanket. "You've been locked up all this time," he said softly. "Why didn't you fight back?" Kael'ra looked down at her claws. "I did. At first." Eli waited. She continued, slowly. "When they took me, I screamed, broke walls, they used pain gas, burned me, said I was animal." She lifted her arm. Scars, old and deep, lined her skin. I stopped. No one listened. So, I slept. Eli sat beside her. "I'm listening now," he said. Kael'ra turned to him. "Why? You are not like them, but still human." He smiled faintly. "Not all humans follow orders. Some follow their heart." She blinked slowly, then leaned closer. "I remember my real name now." "You already told me," Eli said gently. "Kael'ra." She shook her head. "No, that is what I was called. In chains. My true name is Kael'ra." The word floated through the air like an ancient song. Eli whispered it back. "Kael'ra." She smiled. Yes. In that moment she wasn't a monster. She was a person. A soul. A woman carrying the weight of a broken world, but peace didn't last. Eli's wrist beacon beeped. Tracking signal detected. His eyes widened. "They're following me." Kael'ra stood, claws ready. "I will stop them." "No," Eli said quickly. "Not yet. We need proof. Evidence. If I can send out the real story, maybe the galaxy will stop hunting you." She looked unsure. "Proof?" she asked. Eli nodded. "There's a main archive room in the base. Old footage. War logs. If I can reach it, I might find the truth." She stepped closer. "Then we go." He stared at her. "You're sure?" She placed her hand gently on his chest. "You gave me a name. I give you my strength." Outside the storage room, the base, had gone quiet, but Eli knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. Kael'ra moved beside him like a shadow. Every step forward meant risking her life. But Eli didn't care anymore. She wasn't a monster. She was his friend, and maybe, just maybe, something more. As they reached the edge of the archive's hallway, Eli saw two guards near the security door. He turned to Kael'ra. "Can you get us past them without killing?" She smiled faintly. "I will try." She stepped forward, making a low humming sound deep in her throat. The lights flickered. The guards clutched their heads, eyes wide with confusion. And then they collapsed, still breathing. Eli's jaw dropped. "What was that?" Kael'ra looked back. "Song of Sleep." "My people's gift, forbidden now." He stared in awe. "You're full of surprises." Inside the archive room, Eli powered up an old console. Kaylee Renna stood watch. As files loaded, a video flickered onto the screen. There she was, years ago, standing in a white robe, arms raised in peace. A line of soldiers opened fire. She didn't attack. She just screamed as the children behind her fell. Eli's hands shook. They blamed you for surviving. Kaylee Renna said nothing. She simply placed one hand on his shoulder, and for the first time, Eli wept, not because she was scary, but because she never should have been feared at all. Beneath the mask of war, they told the galaxy she was a monster. The truth? She was a shield, not a sword. She bled, but never killed. She screamed, but no one heard. Until now. Eli stared at the grainy footage replaying again and again. Kaylee Renna, dressed in white, hands raised. Behind her, dozens of Vylari children hiding in fear. And then, soldiers fired. Blasters lit up the peaceful square. The children fell. She dropped to her knees and howled, not in rage, but in grief. Kaylee Renna stood silently beside him, golden eyes dim. "That was my home," she said quietly. "We offered peace, and they called it a trap." Eli's stomach turned. "They buried this, lied to everyone. They made you into a monster so no one would ask why." Kaylee Renna didn't answer. She simply stepped forward and placed a hand on the glowing. "Janitor, can you copy it?" she asked. Eli nodded. "Yes, I can transmit this off-world." He plugged in a small cube from his utility belt, a device most engineers use to back up logs. This time it would carry the truth. Suddenly, red lights blinked across the screen. Unauthorized data transfer detected. "Damn it," Eli muttered. "They're tracing it." Kaylee Renna grabbed his arm. "We go, now." They ran through the halls, data cube in Eli's pocket. The footage locked inside. Footsteps echoed behind them. This time, more than guards. These were elite enforcers, masked, silent, armed with weapons made for killing monsters. They reached a service shaft. "I'll go first," Eli said. Kaylee Renna shook her head. "No, I protect." She climbed first, her claws digging into metal, fast, graceful. He followed close behind. Blaster fire sizzled below, but they made it to the upper floor. Eli gasped. "Hangars nearby. If we reach the comm tower, I can send the file." Kaylee Renna turned to him. "Go, I will delay them." He stared at her. "No, not again. I won't leave you behind." She leaned forward, her forehead gently resting against his. Softly, "You touched me. When I was nothing, you gave me back. Me." Tears stung Eli's eyes. "You're not nothing, you never were." They broke into a dark corridor leading toward the tower. Inside were large murals, ancient carvings taken from the planets the base had conquered. Eli stopped at one. His breath caught. It showed Kaylee Renna's people, smiling, peaceful, standing, beside humans and aliens, before the war, before the lie. "I think we were allies once," Eli whispered. She nodded. "We were, until fear won." The final hallway was lined with guards. Kaylee Renna looked to Eli. "Stay behind me." Before he could stop her, she stepped into the open. A guard raised his weapon. She didn't flinch. Another shouted, "Monster on level 2. Fire on sight." Eli ran forward and yelled, "Wait, she's not your enemy, I have proof." No one listened. Kaylee Renna reached out. A soft hum vibrated the air, low, deep, and powerful. Suddenly, all the guards dropped their weapons, their minds asleep. Eli stared, wide-eyed. "That's not just sleep," he whispered. "That's peace." She turned to him. "Our gift." They called it a weapon. They reached the tower. Eli uploaded the file into the beacon. A countdown began. "Transmission ready in 60 seconds, the voice said. Kaylee Renna looked out the glass window. "Ships were launching from the base. They will destroy the signal," she said. Eli nodded. "Not if one of us gets to that control switch." He looked at her. She already knew. She stepped forward, eyes shining. "I'll hold them off." Eli opened his mouth to stop her, then paused. He saw her smile, not the smile of a monster, but of someone who finally remembered what it felt like to matter. She ran, like fire in the wind. The hallway lit up with enemy blasters. Explosions shook the walls. Eli stared at the screen as the countdown hit 0. Transmission sent to every system, every government, every news channel. He whispered, "They'll know the truth now." But when he turned, Kaylee Renna was gone. Later, as the base went dark and silence returned, soldiers found Eli alone in the control tower. No sign of Kaylee Renna, no blood, no body, just one message playing on every screen in the galaxy. Her name was Kaylee Renna. She wasn't a monster. She was a survivor, and she deserved to be heard. Escape or execution, the galaxy had seen the truth. For the first time in 10 years, they saw her face. Not a monster, not a killer, but a woman, weeping over the bodies of children. Some refused to believe it. Some cried, and some called it treason. Eli sat in a cold metal room, hands cuffed, clothes torn, face bruised. Interrogation had lasted for 6 hours. The alien commander slammed his fist on the table again. "You shared restricted footage. You aided a creature, marked for death. You betrayed your species." Eli looked up slowly, tired but calm. "I saved someone who was already betrayed." Across the station, news screens flashed the same headline. "The monster was innocent. Galaxy divided over human-leaked truth about the Violari massacre." On planets far and near, protests broke out. Some wanted Kaylee Renna honored. Some wanted her hunted. And somewhere in the middle of it all, no one knew if she was alive. Back in the cell, a voice whispered through the wall. "You're braver than they say, human." Eli leaned forward. "Who's there?" A soft laugh. Then, "An old friend of hers. I saw your message. So did others." Eli's heart jumped. "She's alive?" No reply. Just silence. Then a sharp beep. His cuffs unlocked by themselves. The door opened. He stepped out carefully, heart pounding. Outside the cell block, a hooded figure waited. Not tall, not red-skinned. Human, but her voice was soft and strange. "Come, you've done enough. Now it's her turn." Eli followed. The corridors were dark, empty. Everyone else was either fighting protests above or hiding from the political firestorm his message had caused. They reached a landing pad. A small stealth shuttle waited. Engine humming. The hooded woman handed him a satchel. Medical supplies, tracker jammer, clothes. And this. She gave him a small silver shard. He turned it over. On it was engraved a symbol, a circle with a star inside, the same one Kaylee Renna had drawn on the glass. "She's waiting," the woman said. Eli stepped toward the ship, but before he entered, he looked back. "Why are you helping me?" The woman lowered her hood, alien eyes, faintly glowing. "Violari. She gave me peace once. Now I return the favor." The shuttle took off silently. Stars streaked past the windows. Eli sat in silence, gripping the shard. He didn't know where he was going, but something in his heart told him she was alive, and she had a plan. Meanwhile, in the deepest part of an old moon base, Kaylee Renna sat before a glowing console. Wounds wrapped, skin healing. Her eyes flicked through screens showing reactions from across the galaxy. One video showed children drawing her symbol on their walls. Another showed politicians arguing over what had happened. She watched it all without speaking. Then finally she whispered, "Now they see me." A quiet voice behind her spoke. "Do you still trust him?" She turned. A Violari elder stood in the shadows. "He gave me back my name," Kaylee Renna said. "I owe him everything." The elder nodded. "And what will you do now?" She stood, tall and calm. "Now, I stop running." Back in space, Eli's shuttle slowed. The stars cleared. Ahead was a hidden planet, lush and green, untouched by war. As the ship landed, he stepped onto soft grass. Warm wind, blue sky, and then a familiar sound, a soft hum. He turned. And there she stood, alive, whole, beautiful. She stepped closer, slowly, carefully. "Did they hurt you?" she asked. Eli smiled. "Not enough to forget you." She reached out her hand. No chains, no glass, no fear. He took it. And the galaxy, for the first time in a long time, began to heal. Touched by a human, it began with fear. It ended with a touch, not of violence, not of war, but of understanding. When Kaylee placed her hand in Eli's, something inside her cracked open, something that had been locked away for too many years. For the first time, she wasn't behind glass, wasn't in chains. She was standing on soft grass under a blue sky with no one calling her a monster, and next to her was him. Eli held her hand a moment longer, then smiled awkwardly. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." Kaylee's golden eyes shimmered. "I knew, you promised." Eli chuckled. "Did I?" She nodded. "You said you'd help me find my voice." "You did." She looked around at the peaceful planet they now stood on. "And now, I help others." Kaylee led him to a small hill where other Vailari waited. Women, children, elders, all survivors, all hidden since the war. When they saw Eli, they did not flinch, they bowed. "You are the one who shared the truth," an elder said. "Without you, we would still be forgotten." Eli shook his head. "I just hit a button." Kaylee looked at him. "No, you saw me. That was the real start." In the days that followed, Eli stayed with the Vailari. He helped build shelter, plant food, repair machines. Kaylee taught him their songs. They weren't songs of sadness. They were songs of memory, of who they were before fear stole their future. And slowly, across the galaxy, the tide began to turn. One by one, planets began to speak Kaylee's name, not with hate but with respect. Some called her the Peace Flame, others, the Voice of the Silenced. Even on Earth, children drew her symbol on school walls. No longer a warning, but a sign of courage. The very leaders who once hunted her now begged to speak with her. One night, as the stars lit the sky, Kaylee and Eli sat by a fire. She stared into the flames. "Do you miss your world?" He thought for a moment, then shook his head. "I never felt like I belonged there until I met you." She smiled. "And now I know where I'm meant to be." He turned to her. "With you." Kaylee's hand touched his cheek. "You changed my world," she whispered. Without fear, without force, just touch. Eli leaned into her palm. "You weren't the monster they feared. You were the mirror they couldn't face." The next day, a transmission came from the Galactic Council, an invitation, not a trial, not an arrest, but a peace conference, with Kaylee as the guest of honor. She stood, tall as she read the message, then looked at Eli. "Will you stand with me?" He nodded. "Always." Weeks later, on a shining platform in front of billions watching across the galaxy, Kaylee stepped into the light. No chains, no armor, just truth. Eli walked beside her, and when a child from the audience reached out a tiny hand, Kaylee knelt down and touched it. The crowd gasped, and then they applauded. One touch had once started a war. Now, another ended it. Final lines, narration style. The world feared her because they never saw her. But one human did. He touched the monster and found a heart that never stopped beating.